Welcome to Break the Ice with Nati Mieni. Yes, we are excited to be here once more. As always, we love seeing you and coming to share our 2 cents and hope that it makes sense. Today, we just want to discuss something very pertinent. And for this, I'm going to ask the elders for permission to speak. As an African child, I have guiders and elderly people. This is a sensitive topic that I'm about to touch on because it also, in a way, talks of some of the things that have become part of finding ourselves as African people, from an archaeological perspective, but also talk of desecration. So, yes, in my own right, I am a man and I am a father. I am able to speak on these topics, from a spiritual perspective. I'm also able to speak on these topics, but with respect to my ancients, I will ask for permission to speak. And I will also assume that that permission is granted because this topic has been sitting with me and has been sitting in for quite some time, and I needed to really unpack this. And it goes to a very interesting subject called Egyptology, which forms part of the so-called archaeology or archaeological fraternity, where they've decided that Egypt is not just a piece of land on a continent, but is a subject on its own because the Egyptians, according to them, are not African, so always trying to take my forefathers from me. Okay, but I don't mind. But now we're going to talk about the desecration of graves. The graves of Tutankhamun, the graves of the old pharaohs, the African graves that get desecrated all over the continent. And now we're going to talk about the curses that African people put on graves. And we're going to explain whether you are thinking that it's from a superstitious perspective or whatever. And we're going to explain because there's events that happen and we see them, And when we see these events and we look at dates of things that have been happening and we say, wait a minute, did they not just touch another grave? Why is this happening? The head of Egyptology in the Ministry of Antiquities in Egypt, I'm not sure if he's retired or not. He's got some experiences that he will tell you about the movement of mummies and everything else, where he himself has felt that he's experienced some curses. It's well documented. You can go in and look at it and look at that piece of knowledge and find out from him in his own words what has happened and why he's also against the moving of mummies and putting mummies in museums and stuff like that. So now we're going to unpack. I'm going to first speak this in my native language and say, Ituna liyacushwa. ithuna liyacushwa. Why? We set traps on graveyards. Why do we do that? Because we understand that people do strange things. African knowledge is very deep. We understand that death is not the end. And by using that and saying death is not the end, we also set certain traps so that the dead are not disturbed by the living wanting to do things that are not right. And that's just a normal family. Now, imagine the type of spells and incantations and curses that are put on a king's tomb. I have a theory. It's probably the most wildest theory of why the pyramids of Giza that once sat on a plateau that was very fertile and green are now sitting in the middle of the desert, you know? And archaeology and the environmentalists and all of these people and they will tell you of how that whole thing happened. I can say, hey, what if it all started because of the first desecration of tombs, when people went and started stealing things from the pyramids? You know, we sit with pandemics that we don't understand. You know, just recently we were opening tombs, you know, and we've heard of certain curses that have been interpreted in tombs that will say that whoever opens and disturbs this person will suffer fire, brimstone, and everything else, and all of the things that you can think of in life, you know, because those are the things that we as African people actually do, you know. And if you really cared about a history of a people, you would not go and desecrate their forefathers and start excavating them. But we know, yes, Europe has got the Church of Skulls and things like that. So the way that Europe deals with its death and its dead, and the way that Africa deals with its dead, you know, are totally different ways of dealing with the dead. You get my point. You get my drift. So because we understand that as the basis, you know, the first thing that you should ask yourself, what are the repercussions if we say and claim and all are in agreement that some of the desecrated tombs are coming from the people who we call the masters of civilization? People who have built buildings that we cannot even replicate with modern technology. People who had a higher knowledge than us, because they could use their naked eye and be able to see stars and be able to align their monuments with those star systems that are only being discovered by modern science through the use of telescopes. And then you think that a grave like that is just a piece where a person is thrown away. Yet you see everything that is written there, you know, the stories that are written there. So For as long as things happen, as long as these things keep happening, as long as these things keep happening, and I keep repeating this, as long as these things keep happening, we as the world are in for a big, big, big shock. I don't see anybody. I remember there was a time when they went to try and dig up Genghis Khan, and the people said no. They said he's buried in that mound, but nobody's allowed to go and excavate. Why is it so easy to come and dig up my forefathers? Why is it so easy to come and desecrate sacred places like the graves of my forefathers, knowing very well how important ancestry is to Africans? You see, people always mistake it and say it's ancestor worship. You can't worship your DNA, my friend. Your DNA is part of you, whether you like it or not. I am because they were. And they were because the others were. So, my ancestors are written in my DNA. I am a living present of them. Without them, I'm not there. I'm not there. I don't exist. So, with that understanding, why would you go and desecrate the graves? Yes, we understand that it happens in Egypt because Egypt is now a foreign land governed by foreigners. The original inhabitants of Egypt lost the wars and were kicked out and are no longer there. Hence, the people that are there are able to grant access because they have no emotional or DNA attachment to the great kings that are being desecrated. We cry as the children of the South. As the same archaeologists say, civilization began here in the South. So the revolution to restore the soul of the human race will also begin here in the South. And here at Break the Ice, we will play our part because we are not afraid to tackle these hard topics. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our 2 cents. We hope it makes sense to you. Please don't forget to subscribe, like our channel, like this topic if you like it, leave your comment below, and engage with us because these are topics around the fire. We want you to engage. Call us out if you feel like we need to be called out. And let's talk. We are here to make sure that conversations are triggered. Thank you. Looking forward to it. Don't forget, click that notification button and stay tuned. Till next time. Siyathokoza.